First of all, I would like to thank you very much. We have a constitutional system in this country where multi-party democracy is multi-party democracy is an existential issue for this country. You know that this is a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country where there are lots of interests of groups and individuals that has to be addressed by a democratic system. So we are very keen to see that the multi-party democracy in this country flourishes. So there is no way that the government can backtrack from democratic discourse and multi-party democracy in this country. We have more than 90 parties registered and legally operating in this country, and they have all the rights to exercise given the rule of the law in the country. As an incumbent, you always know that a ruling party has advantages than any other parties in every country. But we have legal systems that give all the necessary provisions for opposition party members in my country. And we feel that even though this is a fledgling democracy that needs to be improved every day and every time, we have enough room for parties to exercise their rights in the country. When you say an even playing field in terms of media usage, as a government uses to implement and to address its issues and agenda using public media. This is an incumbent and an elected government needs to use the public media to address to the people who elected this government. I think this has to be understood as a matter of principle. But of course, the opposition party members also has to use this media whenever they need it, whenever they have occasions that needs to use the media. We have media debate with opposition party members, occasionally on basic agenda items of this country. Specifically, you might remember the issues that the opposition party member usually raise, issues of our proclamation on anti-terrorism, and similarly also on civil society organizations proclamation and systems, which the opposition party members usually raise as a point of discussion. So I think this has been addressed in public media together with major opposition party members. And we feel that whenever they have gatherings and peaceful demonstrations, this media is covering their issues. If they want to have more engagement with the media, I think they have to closely work with the media for the future. But this is an election year, and I think the statistics shows us that the media outlets that has been provided to the opposition party members, usually they use only, about 40% of the allocated time of the media, the public media. So I think this is the allegation is incorrect, because they have never used more than 40% of the allotted time for their campaign during the election period. So this shows that their weakness and their ability to work with provided time. So I think they have to improve their ability to use the allocated time efficiently and effectively. I think that's not the problem of the government at this time. The second question was providing money to the ruling party from the ruling party, organizations that has been established by the ruling party. I think the law of this country doesn't allow any party to have an investment and trading organization. So the ruling party does not have any, profit-making organization at this time. There are organizations that are called endowments, which are, owned by the people of some regions, and this has nothing to do with ruling party. And the ruling party also, abides to the rule of law in this country, abides to the legal system in this country. So we do not have profit-making organizations with us, and we do not get this. Usually during the election period, it's obvious that the ruling party gets the money necessary from the private sector and its members. So this is how it used to be, and it will be in the coming election as well. The country has freedom to operate and work in this country. So I think when we talk about those has been imprisoned, leaders of the political parties, opposition political parties, we have to recognize that those who are operating legally has never been imprisoned in this country. It's simply because we have some of the opposition party members who are legally registered. Amongst the leadership, there are few who has connection with banned, terrorist organizations like Gimbot 7 and OLF, and Al-Shabaab. These are legally, banned by the parliament and recognized as terrorist groups. And if any opposition party leader who has connection and working for these operations, I think this is illegal, and the government has a legal duty and responsibility to work on this issue, to safety and security of our own people. So I think if anyone is not connected to these terrorist groups, the government is not there to arrest and imprison any of the opposition party members. But anyone who is imprisoned has obviously has connection with these terrorist groups. And we are going to continue on with this process because our primary obligation is to make our people safe and secure. And therefore, we usually advise legally operating and registered opposition party members to clean themselves and their leadership, that there is no connection with these terrorist groups. If we have evidence that there is connection with these terrorist groups, obviously the government is going to take action by bringing these guys into the court of justice. So this is our standing policy, and will continue to do so. We cannot be blamed by this because we are elected to safeguard and make sure that the safety and security of this country is observed. As far as organizations like human rights, Amnesty International, CPJ, and name them, they have started campaigning against this government and country some 14, 15 years ago. They have continued with this business because they have an agenda. One of the issues they used to campaign against this government was that there is a land grab and that there is eviction of farmers from their lands, from their ancestral lands, and therefore the indigenous people's right has been jeopardized. I think this allegation has been checked and proved wrong by the diplomatic community members who reside in Addis Ababa, time and again. But these guys has continued on campaigning against the government of Ethiopia. It's simply because the issue of this campaign is ideologically driven. And we can never and ever, reconcile our ideological positions because, Ethiopia pursues a democratic developmental, ideology, and that will be continuing, and we cannot embrace their neoliberal ideology by force. And they are trying, in 2005 election, they have tried to create a color revolution in this country as they used to create color revolutions in some other countries, but they failed. And now the election has come, and they are in the process, similar process of engaging themselves to create, color revolution in this country, which the people of Ethiopia and the government will not allow this to happen, simply because we are now in a right situation where our people doesn't want to have havoc and a kind of, street action, simply because, there is a democratic room for everyone to engage in, and we are committed to have a democratic, free, and fair election in the coming season. So I think there is no room for these guys to continue on campaigning against this government and continue on to create havoc and street action, which they are planning at this time. So this is politically and ideologically driven, and it will continue for the future as well. So the bottom line is my government will not bow down for any ideological driven push that these organizations are making. So I think this has to be crystal clear. The camel is moving forward, and the dogs will continue to bark, and this will continue for the future as well, similar to that of 2005. We are always with the people, and we have a number of engagements with different sections of the society, and we do not have that conclusion that you have made, that there is a discontent similar to that of 2005. Yes, there are discontents from the public in terms of services that the government has to render, like electricity, water, telecom, and transportation in big cities. And also some in areas like the justice system, there are some discontent with the courts in their handling. And there are also some other complaints in service delivery in some of the government offices. So this is true, but we have a process of engaging our people, with civil servants being, educated, and there has been rigorous discussions with the civil servants, which are at the forefront in delivering services to our people. And I think with the enthusiasm of the civil service at this time, after the trainings and discussions with them, we feel that we can improve lots of the discontent that the public is now showing. Of course, we do not claim that we will do this without engaging the public itself. So there are a number of engagement processes with the public, and we are confident that this will be settled with a discussion. We do not say that it is out of hand, and as you put it in a gloomy manner, it's not that true. So I think this process will continue on, and obviously the public is telling us whatever we have to do, and there are lots of improvements in a process in the different parts of the government service delivery outlets. And I think we will continue with that, and we will try to bring hope and satisfaction to our people in the coming time. I think all the decisions as far as election is concerned is made by the people, not by the parties. Anyone who understands the basics of democracy is that democracy is the decision of the people. And some say, how many opposition party members are going to get into the parliament? And who am I there to decide for the people? How can I say anything about it? It's you, the media, who should go for the polling and tell to the people that this party will get this amount of seats. It's not the government. It is the people who should decide how many seats should be given to the ruling party and how many seats should be given to the opposition party members. We are not there to decide for the people. And some say that, you know, if there is only one opposition party member in the parliament, it is not a multi-party democracy. I think multi-party democracy is gauged in terms of the process of the election, not the result of the election. This is misunderstanding by those who want to have only results as the stick yard to measure democracy. Democracy is measured in terms of the process of engagement between parties. I think you have to ask us, how are you going to engage with the opposition party members? And as you mentioned earlier also, whether there is enough political space for the opposition party members to engage in the competition in the election process. So I think that's it. The result is up to the people to decide. Obviously, EPRDF is a dominant party, and its basis is in the farmers, not like other countries. And its basis also on small and micro enterprise developers and, you know, the majority of the city dwellers. So that base matters. If you want to understand, you know, the composition of the support of political parties in this country, you have to see the basis, you know, the support basis of each party. We have 80% of our people residing in rural areas engaged in farming, which is the EPRDF strong base. People have illusion, always have some illusion that there might be some kind of, you know, changes that can take place forcefully or whatever in some kind of undemocratic means. This is not possible because we have huge and strong support from our farming community. This is our basis. So when you talk about the seats, I think it's up to you to study what kind of basis this government has in the rural areas and in the urban areas. We know that there are some, lack of engagement from our side to the upper strata of the community in this country, and we are trying to engage them also in a huge manner at this time. But we are not sure whether we can get, enough vote from those sections of society. So apart from that, this is our basis, and if they want to compete with us, then they have to come to our basis and try to convince them so that they get some part of, the society that has been a strong support for as a basis for EPRDF. So this is how I can explain the whole process of political engagement in Ethiopia. So multi-party engagement in this country, as I said, is not something that this government is going to choose. It is an existential issue. If we do not have a proper multi-party democracy in this country is going to end up like Somalia. So this is an imperative that we need to have a multi-party democracy representing the interests of all the sections of society and groups. We have 25 million students in our school system. These are youth groups with huge aspiration and demand. And if you don't address their needs, especially those who are in the age of politically active group. I think that's an important issue. So this party, EPRDF, has a membership in this area around 2 million students. You can imagine how big this party is. So I think it's very essential to understand, not in a lump sum, but with graded understanding of the section of society, which is the basis for the support of this party, ruling party. And therefore, I say that it is not dying, it's flourishing. And it will continue to flourish, of course, with all its limitations. It's a fledgling democracy, and democracy is simply building democratic culture. It's not something that you can bring in one day and teach them so that everybody becomes democratic. This is not possible. In our societal makeup, including in the households, we have undemocratic practices, like the husband decides everything. The children and the wife are not part of the decision. This is our culture. We have to change this into a democratic culture. Our children will be much more strong in democratization process. So democracy is a culture, and we are in the process of improving from time to time, so it is flourishing. As I said earlier, those institutions like the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International and others, it's good that they have been criticizing Ethiopia and denouncing that this is a repressive government for some time now. But luckily, not only Kenya, but even the Western countries most of them have revised their anti-terrorism law. They have made it tightened because the global situation has changed. And some of them were so much frustrated by their own citizens who have become foreign fighters. So I think this is unfolding in a way that terrorism from your own citizens has become, problematic even to the Western countries, and they want to tighten, which usually accuse us in the same provisions. And luckily also some of them said, oh yes, your terrorism proclamation has been good, but you have to be very careful in the implementation of that anti-terrorism proclamation. That's a good progress. We thank them for that. And I think you need to be strong in situations that the terrorists are changing their strategies and becoming threatening to all the global community at this time. I think Kenya has taken a proper stand where the government of Kenya has to secure safety and security of its own people. That's the first priority of any government as an elected government. That should be there. And I think the Kenyan government has taken a responsible and legally correct position. That's what we have been suffering. When the international community has started to talk about terrorism, Ethiopia was fighting with Al-Ittihad in the borders of Somalia. And we were told that, this is just nothing. But later on, every government said, yeah, Al-Shabaab is a terrorist group and we have to put in the list of terrorists. And so Al-Shabaab has to be denounced as a terrorist organization later on, while Ethiopia was suffering fighting alone with Al-Shabaab. This is historically the anti-terrorism issue is similarly being conducted in the global community. So we always say that there is a double standard. So the global community has to stop to take double standard actions and policies. This always costs you. Then after being costed, then everybody comes to the position Ethiopia has. So I think this is how we see it, and that has to be seen in that lens. party to discuss on this matter. It has already been discussed, and we have a clear proclamation that the House of People's Representative has, has passed some maybe 10 years ago. And this is not a new policy that the government has pursued. It's simply because we were not able to secure issuing sovereign bond to capital market, simply because we were in the HIPC countries range where we were not allowed to do so. But the last 5 years, international global institutions that control this issue of the HIPC countries has allowed the countries to go into commercial loan. Before 5 years, we were only allowed to get concessional loans. We were not allowed to go into commercial loans. But since the last 5 years, we have graduated to get any kind of commercial loans, including getting into the capital market. So this is not a new policy. Issuing a bond is nothing else than a type of securing loan. So it has nothing to do with capital accounts liberalization. It has nothing to do with foreign banks' involvement in the financial sector. So I think there is no change of policy at all. We have types of loans that we secure from the multilateral organizations like the World Bank, ADF, and bilateral loans from different countries, which is project-based. And project-based, loan securing has been there from China, Turkey, India. So I think commercial loans has been, requested by the government of Ethiopia that has been, implemented at this time for infrastructure development and other projects. So I think there is no new policy measure that has been taken, and people shouldn't confuse that getting into the capital markets for securing commercial loans means liberalizing the financial sector. It doesn't mean at all. The main policy in the liberalization of the financial sector rests on liberalizing your capital account and also allowing foreign financial institutions to operate in the country. So these are the only two issues. So I think this has been there in our agenda for several years, but of course we were only allowed the last 5 years to go into this market. So there is no major shift of policy, more than usual. And we have also a consensus, and there is no difference of opinion in the ruling party leadership. And I think this might be a rumor that, as usual, being told to some of the members of the media. But of course, there is no difference amongst ourselves as far as this policy is concerned, because this is not a new policy at all. Loan money is not going to be allocated into consumption. This is a strict position of the government, that the money will be allocated only to investment. And when we also choose amongst the investment projects that the government has to conduct, we also focus on those areas where we can generate more export, so that we can favorably increase our export earnings and also pay back the loan without any debt crisis. So for this reason, the areas which has been selected is to establish industrial parks where export-led industrialization will be enhanced. So it means that when we facilitate for private sector to engage in manufacturing sector, we have put in place in our policy as an instrument that we have to establish industrial parks. And this establishment is the main area where we have to spend this money for investment. That shows that that currently there is a huge demand from foreign direct investment flowing in this country to have pre-prepared industrial parks where they want to have a plug-and-play kind of operation. So you know that labor cost has become very expensive in countries like China, Korea, Japan, wherever you go at this time for light manufacturing. So this is an opportune moment for a country like Ethiopia to attract more light manufacturing companies to take stock of the advantage we have in terms of cheap labor and cheap electricity, and as well as conducive investment environment. So we have to prepare ourselves for this, and this needs investment, and we will focus on preparing a number of industrial parks in this country. So this is the first area. The second area is to allocate some of the funds into sugar plantations and sugar factories, where exactly very quickly we can have more exports from the sugar sector, so that we can secure our export earnings. So these are the areas where we are going to allocate our fund for development. You know, the most important parameter for securing loan funds is your debt sustainability ratio. We are very careful in managing our macroeconomic situation, where our debt sustainability should always be at low risk. And you know that we are at low risk at this time, because all the parameters, all the 5 parameters, you know, which measures the debt sustainability issue, are at the best situation at this time. So while monitoring this debt sustainability issue, we can secure more loans and funds from other sources as well. So I think there is no restriction. The only restriction is we should be very careful that we are sustainable in acquiring the debt. As far as the statement made by the finance minister that in the next 3 years we are not going to get more loan from the bond issuing is true, because we have decided in such a way that we have loans that are under process with project-based loan securing. So I think those has to be completed. We think that we can complete in the coming 3 years all those loan mechanisms, and we will know where we are in the real parameters of debt sustainability. So that's why we are carefully navigating into securing loans, because the parameters should not be jeopardized at any cost. You know, debt crisis can come if you are not so careful. So the macro management is very stringent, you know, and therefore we will continue on managing the macro economy of this country in a very, responsible manner. So that's why the finance minister has said we need 3 years to understand and complete already online negotiations that are taking place for securing more loan that are not bond issuing, but project-based. So I think that's the main reason why he has said this. As far as the Eurobond is concerned, yes, the first argument is correct, that Ethiopia has a strong foundation. Ethiopia has been rated by the renowned rating companies, I think agencies globally, and has been rated as B and B+. So this shows that Ethiopia has been said, has a strong political stability and a strong, macroeconomic stability, and has a future where even IMF has announced that in 2015, Ethiopia has become one of the 3 fastest growing economies globally. So I think this shows that, Ethiopia has been rated as one of, the prosperous country, that debt sustainability is not a problem, or paying back this loan is not a problem in Ethiopia. So the second argument is, in that sense, is incorrect. Because in all the parameters which I told earlier, Ethiopia has been tested and passed all those things. By the way, you have to understand that those institutions that are giving loan to Ethiopia, they want also to be sure that Ethiopia is going to pay back the loan. They are not idiots that give their money simply to you, that the money is going to be eaten up. They understood that Ethiopian policy is towards investing in infrastructure and export earning sectors. So they understood, and they competed for 2.6 billion US dollars. We could have taken all the 2.6 billion US dollars, but we were careful in such a way that we will take only 1 billion because we have to navigate carefully to see our debt sustainability issues. But as Tamrat said, you know, in technical proposal preparation, you know, when you prepare your risks, you see some risks which are academically possible, which might not come into the reality, like which you mentioned, like the port of Djibouti. You know, some bandits might come and say, "Oh, you can stop this," and you know, this is not naturally. It's not impossible. You cannot say that that cannot happen at all. You know, every country can see whether this is possibility or not. You know, this is extreme case. But you have to also see when you put into the risk, said, this is low. You put the parameter, but finally when you evaluate it, you say, this is very low. It's very low. It cannot be the main issue. Similarly, you put all the parameters and you rank those parameters, like saying it's very low, low, or medium risk. So it's only for the technical assessment that this issues has been mentioned. It's not simply because it happens. Even though it's remote, but for technical analysis, you put all the necessary risks on Earth so that you can evaluate it properly. And give confidence to those who are giving the money, their own money to you, that you can pay back with all those analyses. I think this has to be seen as an academic exercise rather than something which tells you something wrong. As far as the loans we secure from financial institutions and the capital market, as we have done now, is concerned, I think the main parameter which I mentioned earlier is the debt sustainability test that the country has to pass. And so this is the only parameter that helps us to understand whether we are in a low risk range of securing loans. So I think this is the only thing we can do. And we are in that position now. The country is at low risk and will continue to be at low risk as far as loan securing is concerned. I think I cannot exactly tell you the amount because it changes from time to time. But it is probably in the range of every year from 1 to 2 billion the last 5 years. First of all, the delays in our sugar plant factory. So we have already allocated for the existing sugar factories. The delay is simply because you know that we have embarked in a new path of industrialization in this country where we started to have our own fabrication at home for the factories. This is a new process and a new venture. And you know that when you are a beginner, there is always, a path of, learning curve and learning process. So that takes some time. That's why we have some delays in the new sugar factories. Our metal and engineering corporation is the one who is fabricating the factories themselves. And in that process, we have some delays because of the competence and the skills, and also the design capability, which needs rectifying from time to time. But now I think they are in a good position, but we can now continue on erecting those factories, new factories in Beles 2 and Omo Valley 1 factory, and the rest are in the process. So I think with a doing and learning process, there are some delays that has taken place. It's not because of the financial constraint. This money is going to be allocated for new sugar factories, not for existing, already existing, investment. These condominium housing houses that are we are engaged in to provide housing to our people has been there for the last 10 years. It is improving, and we are progressing very well at this time. We have several kinds of modalities, and the first modality is, we call it 1090, which is for low income category of the society. This is you bring 10% of the saving, and 90% will be provided by the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia. So the construction will take place. And in this regard, we have 24,000 people registered, and we have 25,000 houses. So it's even beyond the people which has been registered for this category of the housing project. And I think this will be completed very soon when we hand over those projects on our hand now. The second category is the 2080. And we have more than 500,000 people registered for this. And we are now constructing around 90,000 units of houses. And these are under completion. But we have also begun a new housing project in this regard, around 50,000 last year and 50,000 this year. So 100,000 houses are under construction beyond those who are under completion, like the 90,000 which I mentioned to you. And the third category is, we call it 40-60, where you save 40, and then the bank will provide 60%. And we have 25,000 housing units are under construction in this regard. More than 160,000 people registered for this. So I think with this pace, we can achieve in the coming maybe 7, 8, 9 years those who have been registered. We have some issues that has to be addressed. There are complaints from some corners that those who have been registered are not all the city residents of Addis Ababa. So we are now screening. So there is a possibility that there will be huge reduction from those who have been registered because they are not city residents of Addis Ababa. So it means that we can achieve our plan very soon, if that's true, while we get this through the screening process. So I think it's going in a very right direction, and will continue to do so. There is an option that a foreign company can, anyone who is interested, who wants to work with a government housing project, who can work with us, we can allow. That doesn't mean that these people are going to involve themselves in real estate. This is not a real estate project. It is just a government housing project. And those who are willing to work with us in the condition that the government puts in place, I think they are allowed to come in. This simply because we want to have a technology transfer and an expeditious completion of the housing projects we have at our disposal. So that's why we are keen to see that some foreign companies who are keen to work with this project can come and join us in the condition which we put to them. So I think this is the main issue. with a good result. It is true that there is no clear agreement between the negotiating parties in terms of the structure of governance that they have to pursue during the transitional government of national unity. But that doesn't mean that things has fallen apart. We need to bring these guys together. We have never brought them. There is a plan that the two parties who have adjourned for consultation will come back, and we will see the report. And I think, as usual, we'll also push them to go on the right track so that they see the people of South Sudan as the first than everything. You know that these people have suffered for the last 40, 50 years. And they deserve peace and stability and deserve, prosperity. And as good neighbors, we need to support this negotiation with a good spirit. I think we do not lose hope. We'll continue on pushing the negotiating parties to conclude their negotiation on the structure of the governance system. I hope there will be a good ground to have a middle line between the extreme positions the two parties are taking. As IGAD leaders are preparing for the summit, I think this summit will help us with the support of the international community to strike a deal. First of all, we need to peacefully resolve the situation in South Sudan with patience, because actions and sanctions are not the best ways of resolving the problem. This is the last reason. We will continue to be patient for some time, because that helps us to resolve the problem in a peaceful manner. But as far as military involvement in South Sudan, if the parties fail to agree, needs the consent of the IGAD leaders in the coming summit or sometime in the future. So I cannot comment representing the IGAD summit now. So I think the main issue now is, in order to implement sanction, we have to be very sure that there is no other option, that it is the last resort. First of all, Egypt is our friendly to disallow the Egyptian president not to visit Ethiopia. I think the request has come, and we have responded, and responded favorably that the Egyptian president can visit and should visit Ethiopia. And therefore, I think it is through our diplomatic channel that the timing can be fixed between our two countries. And there is no reason. I think it is just a speculation, the usual Egyptian media speculation, and it's not a new thing. Conducted by the Public Diplomacy Group from Ethiopia, which is led by the Speaker of the House of People's Representative. And I think the visit, as far as the information I received is concerned, has been very successful. In the first place, they have met with government officials, including the President of Egypt, and they have also visited religious institutions, the major religious institutions, the Muslim religious institution and the Coptic Orthodox Church of Egypt. And their discussion has been, cordial, and there is understanding between the people of, the groups that they have met, between our public diplomacy group and that of Egyptian counterparts, that all of us, we need a win-win solution for the development of the Nile Basin, and especially the Blue Nile Basin. So I think this is a remarkable achievement, because there should be an understanding that, as our public diplomacy group has mentioned to the Egyptian counterparts, that Ethiopia is not in a position to harm Egypt by all means. We are ready to work very closely with Egyptian institutions, and we are still working with them in our tripartite committee arrangement, where the study is being conducted by both Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan experts to understand the impact of the Grand Renaissance Dam on the downstream countries. And in this regard, I think we are in the right direction. We are confident that building this dam will not harm both Sudan and Egypt, simply because the reasons are clear, and that this is an hydroelectric dam which doesn't consume water. And the only question is the filling of the dam. The filling of the dam has also technical and engineering solution, and we have to embrace this solution that the technical experts bring to us, so that we use the product of this investment, that's electricity. If there is any desire for Egypt or Sudan to be part of purchasing the power from Ethiopia, I think we are favorably, we will position ourselves to give them some of the portions of the 6,000 megawatt we produce. So I think there is lots of ways that we can have a win-win arrangement for the three countries to benefit from this grand investment. As far as the Ethio-Djiboutian relations is concerned, I think we have excellent relationship. I believe that it is an excellent relationship. I concur fully with the President of Djibouti that we are moving towards economic integration, and that economic integration ultimately will bring in a long time period into political integration. But when we talk about political integration, we are not talking about only Ethio-Djiboutian political integration. We are talking about the bloc as IGAD. So I think there is already program within IGAD that the political integration will follow economic integration within the IGAD bloc. You know, the most successful bloc in this case is the East African Community. And we are working with the East African Community how to bring IGAD vis-a-vis East African Community conglomeration, so that the whole East African bloc will be in the same integration course, both economic as well as ultimately political. You know that the African Union has put a vision, 2063, where there will be United States of Africa. Before that happens, I think the regional blocs has to integrate themselves into some kind of political integration. So it's a long-term vision. It's not something which is going to come in a very soon, but it's there as a vision to be implemented. Yes, there is internal squabbling between the president and former prime minister. By the way, the new prime minister has already been appointed by the president. This is the second time. So it shows that there are some issues that has to be addressed as far as the relationship between the leaders in Somalia is concerned. We hope that the new prime minister will stay up to the vision 2016. So I think this is how we see it, and this is an agreement bilaterally as well as multilaterally in IGAD. We have discussed with the president of Somalia. He assured us that this kind of squabbling will not continue, and there will be political accommodation. Of course, learn from the past mistakes, why the prime ministers and the president are squabbling. So they have to address this into institutional form, why they have been squabbling. I think they are doing this, and with the support of the international community, and I hope this kind of squabbling will not continue for the future. But the harm this has made and the progress in Somalia is not so big, simply because you know that more than 60% of the Somali territory is kept by the Ethiopian peacekeeping force, or the AMISOM contingent of the Ethiopian force. And the strategy is that the Ethiopian contingent is working with the Somali National Defense Force. We train the National Defense Force, and we support them so that we work together with the National Defense Force, so it will be effective in the area, the large area we occupied. The most important thing in Somali politics is to establish grassroots institutions, including the state building in Somalia. I think we successfully built states in Somalia at this moment. And this is the basis to eradicate and dismantle Al-Shabaab from Somaliland. Maybe Al-Shabaab will remain as a hit and run organization very soon. So I think we are in the right direction as far as Ethiopia is concerned. If there is any request from the African Union, Ethiopia is ready to replace any contingent that leaves Somalia. But we use the same strategy that we are using now. It's not the number of forces that's important. It is the integration and the leadership that Ethiopia provides in fighting Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is a threat to Ethiopia now and for the years to come. And we should be vigilant. We should continue to be alert that Al-Shabaab can pose any threat in Ethiopia. So I think it's not because Al-Shabaab has not been threatening Ethiopia that incidents has not happened in Ethiopia. It's simply because we were vigilant. We are following very carefully all the movements of Al-Shabaab in Ethiopia. So I think we are also now cooperating regionally with our neighboring countries, and we hope that Al-Shabaab will not also threaten other neighboring countries for the future as well. So we have to be strong and common forces together as East African bloc. So this is where we are as far as AMISOM is concerned. The second issue is Ebola. I think, yes, Ethiopia has moral and, continental obligation to support our brothers and sisters in Western African countries, especially Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. And I think I'm very happy for the volunteers to volunteer. I think it's not only those who have gone to these three countries, but there are more than 1,000 volunteers ready for supporting this country. This shows, the patriotic position and the solidarity that Ethiopian, public health professionals has shown. And I think this is professional as well as moral obligation for these volunteers. And they represent our country, and we have supported financially as well as for this venture. And we'll continue to do so whenever there is a need for the future to fight this threatening disease called Ebola. I think as Ethiopia is the headquarters of the African Union and a country which has fought for the freedom of our African brothers and sisters, we should also show this magnanimity in fighting Ebola as well as showing that there is a solidarity within the African countries. We shouldn't let this to be only for non-Africans. Usually the notion is that whenever this kind of epidemic happens, it is the Western countries and other big countries that has to involve in. That is the notion within the African context. But we have to break this and show that Africans also are there for the Africans. And we should try our best to bring African solutions to African problems. So I think this is where, where our support emanates from. As far as the morality and the social media usage in schools and other parts of the society is concerned, I think this matter is not so much, an issue of concern at this time. We need to expand and deepen the usage, but the most important thing is to engage with the society, to have a moral structure that helps to work on the progress and development of this country. We have in the schools civic and citizenship education, and there is also a moral education that is going to be introduced very soon. I think these mechanisms will help us to deal with these kind of things. And as far as this equipment is concerned, as far as our capability and financial resource allows us, I think we are ready to work on this issue. Yes.
At IGAD itself, at the mediation of IGAD, do you think that it might be time for the UN to be more involved directly in those talks alongside with IGAD? And could you give us a bit more, maybe a date and some background on the summit which is to come?
So I think UN is not the only organization who has been frustrated in this process. All the international community members are frustrated. 1 year is huge, chunk of time for a country which stays in a conflict situation. Every day there are killings, and every day there are sufferings. So 1 year is a very long period of time. Everybody has to be frustrated. But what choice do you have? You have to bring the negotiating parties together. They are the most responsible parties in South Sudan. You cannot replace them. You can only support them. You can only mediate them. I think IGAD has done everything at its disposal to bring these guys to sign a number of agreements, not one, but a number of them. So I don't think other international community members can add something different apart from taking some kind of punitive measures. So if UN has to come in with a punitive measures to be taken, not for mediation. So I think IGAD has been working very closely with the parties, and it is a mediation process. You cannot replace them. So whatever the parties, whenever the parties are ready for striking a deal, I think IGAD has been able to support them, providing them with ideas and documents that helps them to go forward in the negotiation process. Apart from them, we cannot replace and sign for them.
Just to follow up, sir, do you support sanctions, UN sanctions?
We have already put in our communique of last meeting that if we fail to strike a deal during the coming summit, the IGAD leaders has already been saying that there will be a strong action, and that action includes also sanction. And by that specific communique, IGAD has requested for the AU and the United Nations to support the process if we fail to deal this agreement. So I think it has already been spelled out during the last communique of the IGAD Leaders Summit. That's the case. You have to mention also the time when the oil price has been high. So we have never made the oil price in purchasing terms when it was so high, equally to that amount. So you have to understand the whole macroeconomic management. It's not just where the oil goes down or goes up. Tomorrow it might goes up. Then are you going to change the price as it goes up like 40% to the people? So I think the main thing is to stabilize the whole macroeconomic situation. You have to manage both ups and downs. Not simply downs, but also ups. So the government has been subsidizing when there is high oil price in order to secure the people to purchase oil in a proper price. When it goes down, I think there should be also a balance, so that this is a macro management issue. It's not just a purchasing market price only that works. So we need to understand the whole situation from the very beginning when the fiscal year started to the whole end. If it stabilizes similarly, by going down, I don't think it will happen because you see that there are fluctuations still going up now a little bit. So you have to see the whole situation where the price, international price of oil goes up and down. So I think it's just a macro management issue rather than only the pricing issue that's involved. Progressively there will be lowering of the price. And we have, you know, the oil stabilization fund, which works on this issue in a daily basis and maybe a monthly price establishment. The other issue is, you know, something which frustrates me is the abject poverty. When you come to the helm of this power, you understand how much as quickly as possible. So that's the only frustration I have. But otherwise, I'm content with what has been done for the last 2 years. And the country is moving in the right direction. But the whole thing is, you see that there is a huge need from the whole society in Ethiopia to engage in fighting poverty in a way that we need to eradicate, maybe minimize at this time, but eradicate in the coming 15 years poverty from this country. So if we need to achieve this objective, I think we need to work very hard, and that frustrates you. You know, sometimes you need to work, you know, day and night, we're restless, and see that you contribute to fighting this abject poverty in this country. Thank you very much.